This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is October 3rd, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, and rejoined back from the dead, my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin, welcome back, man. How are you? Everybody's been asking about you. Everybody's been praying for you. I didn't even tell you. Every single person I saw at Media Day, whether it be, Tony, Dan Savage, Kendra Douglas, TJ that works with the social media team, everybody was asking how you're doing. So how are you doing?
Wow, man. Thank you. Glad to be back. It's a little surreal sitting in this chair. These lights are brighter than I remember, no, just kidding. But yeah, it's good to be back. It's definitely, it's been a long couple weeks and I have a long way to go. One of the things that you guys might hear, like even right now, I get out of breath easily right now as my body is still recovering from the surgery. So bear with me on that. But no, things are good. That was really freaking hard, and still is. The initial recovery. Let me back up. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is your first time tuning into the Sixth Man Show, welcome. We're an Orlando Magic podcast. We don't normally talk about heart health, but 2 weeks ago I had open heart surgery. Okay, basically to fix a defective valve that I was born with. That's the long story short. So anyway, so I had expectations of how I thought it would go. I've been preparing for this for a long time. And in some ways, the physical side of that, I feel like I met it pretty well and I'm continuing to meet it, getting stronger every day. But the mental aspect of it, I totally underestimated. It rocked my brain. It's a trippy experience. You're totally helpless for 3 days, after surgery. Well, Jonathan, I'm a guy that likes to be in control of my surroundings. I don't like to hand control over to people when it comes to my brain and things like that. I don't get drunk, for example. I do not like the idea of being drunk because I feel like I lose control, right, of whatever. The fact that there is an entire 24-hour period of my life that is gone in my brain is freaking weird. That moment when I fall asleep for surgery, and then I actually woke up, that night, obviously, but I don't really remember it. I don't really remember anything until the next day. That trips me out. And the fact that the surgeon came in and was yeah, I talked to you, before the surgery, and I have no recollection of that. That bothers me. But that stuff aside, I'm alive. That's the important thing. There's a 3% chance that wouldn't happen, So I'm alive. That's great. The surgery itself, there's a little bit of misconception, I don't want to say communication, necessarily, but it actually wasn't a success. People are saying, glad the surgery went well. It actually went horribly wrong, right? Not to the point of death, but they basically did 3 different surgeries on me. I was referred to this, place in Atlanta, the special hospital, to do this special surgery, and it didn't go well. I could have, the surgery I ended up having, again, I don't want to go down the rabbit trail of it. It didn't go well. I ended up with the backup plan, which is never great. Again, I'm alive. I'll be okay. It just means I'm going to have to be watched really closely for a long time. It means I'm probably going to have another procedure at some point, which sucks. But it is what it is. I'm alive, feeling better every day. So that's my long answer to your very short question, Jonathan, of how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. The short of it is I'm doing good. I'm feeling better every day I'm getting better. So getting stronger. And that's about all I can ask for. So yeah, I'm doing all right.
In the midst of that, I realized that there's something that happened this past week that I didn't get a chance to talk about on Monday with Ben, partly because Media Day sort of got my mind off of it. But we have listeners not only in Central Florida, but all over Florida. So I know there are a lot of people that were affected by Hurricane Helene. So first of all, if you're listening to this, I hope you and your family and hopefully your home were safe. But where I am here on the West Coast, there's so many people that my wife and I went to school with and grew up with, or go to church with, and have come to know really well, that lost everything this past week. And just, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just seeing the literal wreckage and you underestimate the power of water and just how far it can travel and how deep it can be. Just seeing all that kind of stuff. I really needed media day. I don't even know if I really told you this, Kevin. My uncle passed away last week. My mom's been in North Carolina, for the funeral, and then late last week the hurricane happened, and then just like we were fine. Our house, we didn't have any damage at all. We just lost internet, for a day or so. But like the feeling that we were fine, but so many other people that we know, like their lives were just flipped completely upside down by the hurricane. So wanted to talk about that. Hope everybody is doing well. But some other stuff that we want to talk about. I talked about Media Day on Monday with Ben, and we talk with our guests who we'll talk about in a minute here. We talked with them about Media Day. Kevin, we have not heard your takeaways from Media Day.
First off, I gotta say, let's golf clap for Ben. By the way, Ben Gifford,
absolutely
stepping in, doing the media day thing for the first time, being on the show with you for the first time on Monday. Did a great job. Shout out to Ben, and obviously we're really excited to have Ben hosting the Six Fan Show again, right around the corner. I'm sure we'll have some more info about that here in the next coming weeks as the season is right around the corner. But anyway. Media Day, yeah, interesting. Obviously, it was bummed not to be able to be there, but I can't really do that stuff right now. A couple takeaways for me. Going back to the Jalen contract situation, I was trying to think about how most NBA players would handle this situation, right? Like where he and his team are in the midst of contract negotiations. He's there on Media Day, and I was like, how many guys in this situation would be, I don't want to say more standoffish, but maybe just give totally different answers than Jalen. For example, like hearing Jalen say, I want to be here, that doesn't actually help his contract negotiations. That's the opposite, right? But that's just who Jalen is. Like that's his personality. That's his character. And that's his heart too. Like he wants to be in Central Florida. And so hearing him say those things, I was like, man, most guys, they'd either say, I don't want to talk about that, or they'd say, hey, it's up to Jeff to come up with a deal. We've heard guys talk directly at, management of the team like that. We've heard guys totally deflect and say, I want to play somewhere where I'm wanted. We've heard comments like that. But to hear a guy in the midst of contract negotiations say something that actually, technically speaking, although we all know it, but to hear him say it on the first day of training camp, that he wants to be in Orlando, that doesn't help his side of the argument, of the contract negotiations. That was one thing I noticed, but I freaking love Jalen, obviously. We all do. That's his character. That's who he is. That's his heart. I love that. You tweeted about this, and you talked about it. I loved the line from Goga saying that he felt indebted to the Magic. And that's why he came back, knowing that he was going to come back likely again as the third string center. Almost certainly, I should say, as the third string center, knowing that. Yet he still came back. There were other teams out there that he would have been a second string center, at least, maybe even starting, but and more money too, right? Like he made sacrifices on both fronts. In order to, again, because he felt like he was indebted to the Magic for the opportunity that they gave him. I think that's freaking amazing. I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is I think Goga really loves, again, the family that is in Orlando. I think he feels a part of it. And I think he's willing to be a third string, center. But hey, we've got maybe one of the best, if not the best, third string center in the league right now with Goga. And so I'll take it. A couple other quick hitters here. First off, KCP saying he wants to be called Kenny. He mentioned that to Kendra Douglas. You heard it here first, by the way. We talked about that several weeks ago on this show. I said, I feel like I definitely saw him say that at one point. Hey, he said it on Media Day. We're going to call him Kenny. It's going to be great. The other thing is, this one, going back to the whole David Steele thing, I don't think this is anything, but it might be something. Jonathan Isaac, when asked about the restrictions, I don't remember who asked it, but asking about essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, have there been any conversations about restrictions for you, as far as minutes or back-to-backs or whatever, And his answer, again, paraphrasing, was something along the lines of, we haven't had, I have not had any conversations about restrictions. Again, if I'm remembering correctly. My takeaway from that is very different. That is a different answer than they told me I have no restrictions, right? That was one thing that I've wanted to hear. And again, usually those types of conversations haven't happened prior to media day. And so I don't think there's anything weird about that. But some people were kind of reacting to that as, oh, look, no restrictions for Jonathan Isaac. No, he said those conversations haven't happened, basically, is what he said, which is very different than, yeah, they told me I'm good to go. No restrictions, back-to-backs, as many minutes as we need, blah, 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 blah. So those are my quick takeaways. In addition
I have
to
a question. What does that have to do with David Steele?
Well, I'm saying, I said it's not anything, but it might be something.
Oh,
okay.
That's
how I prefaced it. That's how I prefaced it.
I was like, are we likening JI's restrictions to David not doing all the away games? What do we do? Okay.
No, I prefaced it by saying, it might be, it's not anything, but it might be something. That's
right.
What it was.
Okay.
David Steele does this segment on every game where he says, "Is this anything?"
It's so obvious. I didn't think we had to spell that out. Anymore. I thought we could just say, I don't know if it's anything, but it might be, I thought we could just do that, but no, that's totally fine. I'm in the same boat as you. I was hoping that we would, because we have heard in the past that, I haven't been told this or I haven't been told that. And then the thing that we're wondering is still very much the case.
Yep.
So yeah, that's not insignificant, but I'm also at the point where it's like, I don't want to try to squeeze all the juice out of the Jonathan Isaac orange, so to speak. But if we can get a little bit more juice, I think that's going to be really helpful. I don't want to say, he's going to play 25 minutes a game. He's going to play all the back-to-backs, all that kind of stuff. Like, look, if they're not going to play him in a back-to-back where it's the third game in 4 nights, I don't care. If he's not going to play 25 minutes a game, but he's going to play 23 minutes a game, right? As long as we can get like 60 to 65 games of Jonathan Isaac playing 20 plus minutes per game. And then when we get to the playoffs, it's like, hey, no back-to-backs, all bets are kind of off. I am personally fine with that. But yes, 100%. To your point, sometimes what is not said says a lot. Anything else for Media Day for you?
Not necessarily for Media Day. I know we're going to talk a little bit with Sam and Matt about training camp. The Wendell, like I didn't expect to still see him with his hand wrapped. That caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. Like, obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist or whatever. But I thought we were enough removed from all of that he would be able to be playing without that. That threw me off a little bit and concerns me, right? Like, maybe it shouldn't. Hopefully it's just precautionary. It's not anything to worry about. That was just something else from this week that I'm like, wow, it's October and he's got to wear that wrap on his left hand. Anyway, that's just one thing that maybe concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, we're basically, 2.5. No, not even. We're like 4.5, 5 months out from his second surgery, and we've talked about this, but even when he came back, he has this like noticeable like lump on his hand now. I wonder, just for my own curiosity's sake, kind of what happened there. But yeah, that is something to watch and something to pay attention to. One thing that was filmed, I guess, Media Day that came out yesterday or today, I don't remember exactly when that was, Monday or Tuesday, was the newest episode of the Pod Squad, back with David Steele, Dante Marchitelli, Jeff Turner, and then Jake Chapman as well. They sat down with President of Basketball Operations, Jeff Weltman. And although I felt like a lot of what came from that episode, we also kind of got in his Media Day availability. But something that I noticed in that episode of the Pod Squad, and something that I noticed throughout Media Day that didn't really click until I watched that episode, was the word championship over the course of the last 2 or 3 days just feels like it's been said intentionally more in the last 3 days than we've heard in the last like 12 years. And that just, I don't know how to process that, because it's like, yes, we expect to be good. Paolo talked about, we want to reach the Eastern Finals. Like, maybe that's not their expectation, but it is a goal that they have. And at this point, I'm kind of done saying like, oh, this team can or can't do this. We'll just kind of wait and see how it all plays out. But just the idea of them saying like, our goal is to win a championship. that has not been a goal in a very long time, at least not even in the neighborhood of realistically. So it was exciting to hear that. And then to hear Jeff say that when we feel like it's time to push the chips all in, we will, but they haven't gotten to that point yet. And hearing him talk about that as if like it's probably not as far away as maybe we might think.
The championship stuff is definitely interesting and kind of makes me feel a certain way, and I don't really know how to describe it. But hearing Jeff Weltman, maybe that hearing those words come out of Jeff Weltman's mouth about pushing the chips in, that one really caught me off guard, because I don't ever remember, and I don't want this to sound like I'm poking at what Jeff Weltman's saying, right? Like, I don't remember him ever referring to, our players or our assets in such a way, right? Like, he's never once referred to them in something like that, like as essentially, chips or pieces or whatever of some game. Which again, I'm stretching this a little bit here, right?
Oh, you're stretching it a lot, but
I'm stretching it a lot, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's the first time that I feel that we've heard him speak in such a way, like about this as this business, this game, like this end goal, in these terms, right? Again, I'm stretching, but I definitely thought that was interesting, because it's no secret the Magic have assets. And it's not just the players that we have. It's all the draft picks that we have. We've kept all of our draft picks, going forward. Plus we have the Denver pick and a couple other second rounders and stuff like that. But like, those are serious assets. And again, obviously we have the players that we have. And so, yeah, that one definitely raised my eyebrows. I was like, whoa, he just said that, which I think I don't necessarily think it should put the players on notice necessarily, but I think it should put the rest of the league on notice as like, hey, we know that time is coming soon. Like, Jeff acknowledges it, and it's only a matter of time until some sort of move like that is made. And look, maybe that it never has to come to that. Maybe this year, Paolo and Franz solidify themselves as like the absolute 1-2, like these two single-handedly can lead a team to a championship. And, maybe there never has to be a move like that, but more than likely there's going to have to be. And so to hear him acknowledge that for the first time, yeah, that definitely made me listen pretty closely.
I don't think the two are mutually exclusive, though. Like, I think Paolo and Franz can establish themselves as the 1 and the 2. And I think we're probably like, with Paolo, we're 100% there. With Franz, I'm like 95% there. That like, yes, this guy could eventually be like the second best player on a championship team. There still could be a chips all in type of move. That doesn't necessarily mean they go out and trade for a Donovan Mitchell or Karl Anthony Towns or some of the more recent moves that we've seen. But to me, it was the first time that he referenced a big transaction like that without it being like a negative connotation. Like, before, he's talked about that being like a sugar high almost, like making a move just to make a move. And this was the first time that he's talked about making a significant move like that in order to push the team forward and to sort of elevate their ceiling. So it does feel like, this season isn't about this season, right? Like our friend Philip Rossman Reich talks about that all the time. And Jeff Weltman also in that episode of the Pod Squad was talking about how, it's not about this season, but they also don't want to lose sight of this season. And they asked him, like, how far ahead, are you thinking about this thing? And he's like, it's so far that I can't even fathom it. Like, he's thinking about the long term of this team. So it's exciting to hear that, like, maybe we're not there yet, but, like, you can't stop death, taxes, like that kind of stuff is always coming for you. And we're at the point now of like, we're constantly moving towards that move. We don't know how far away it is, but it is eventually coming. So I found that pretty interesting. But Kev, I want to take a minute before we introduce Matt and Sam here to talk about Matt and Sam and sort of like our thinking behind adding to the team and talk a little bit about what those guys are doing. I know we talked about it a little bit with them, but just sort of like introduce our listeners to them. So when Luke left, the show at the beginning of the summer, and we knew that he was, going to be doing that, and we knew that, Kev was going to be sliding over into the podcast, co-host chair. last season was awesome. It was a lot of fun. We had just so many great experiences, but it was exhausting. And we've been doing this. I've been doing this now for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in a few months here. And, Jeff Weltman, back to the pod squad, he said, this is like our last exhale or we inhale and then we don't get to exhale until the season is over. And that's kind of where we are now. So just talking about the future and how we can set up the team and set up everybody to be as successful as possible moving forward and to try to, not get ourselves burnt out, but also try to improve the content and everything that we're doing. We said, we should probably look to bring someone in to help with the post-game live. Kevin's still going to do the majority of those, but we found Matt and we found Sam, two people that we've had our eyes on for a long time in terms of, wanting to work with them in this space and, do content, with them. So, we're going to get to our conversation with them in just a minute, Kev, but I thought it would be helpful to sort of, tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah. And I think you're going to hear in a little bit, when we have our conversation with them. These are two legit Orlando Magic fans, but also they're good guys and they're like well-spoken, like I think you're going to enjoy their takes, not just in this episode, obviously, but all season long. I really think they're going to bring a new voice, a new flavor to, the six-man show content, to the post-game lives. And so I just want to reiterate, by the way, what the post-game lives are. Maybe you joined us for the first time this summer. You haven't been with us, maybe for actual basketball, or maybe you've been around for a while and you just never tuned in. We do a live post-game show on YouTube after every Orlando Magic game. We talk a little bit more about that in our conversation with them, but basically Magic game ends within a couple minutes. We're live on YouTube talking about the game. So it doesn't matter if it's a thrilling victory to close out the season against the Bucks to clinch the playoffs, or a brutal defeat that started at 10:30 p.m. on the West Coast against the Clippers that ends at 1 a.m. Doesn't matter what time the game is over. Doesn't matter if it's a win or a loss. We're live on YouTube talking about the game. And so it was really fun last year getting to, kind of experience that with all kinds of Magic fans, from casuals to diehards and everybody in between. And so again, I mentioned it later in the show, but we didn't want that to suffer, but it also wasn't sustainable doing all 82 games and then doing the podcast and everything. And so that's why I brought Sam and Matt on, and I'm super pumped to have them. I think they're going to be awesome additions, and it's going to be a lot of fun doing the post-game shows with them.
And do we want to talk about what else is going on with the post-game live?
Well, happy to announce, if you tuned in to any of those last year, the post-game live was presented by Rockham. And we're very happy to announce that we have re-upped with Rockham again. So once again, the 2024-25 post-game live will be presented by our friends at Rockham, which some of you might be able to see the stuff underwear over my shoulder. Also, all kinds of fun socks and underwear. Franz Wagner socks. They make all kinds of socks and underwear for some of your favorite teams, not just the Orlando Magic, but NHL, NFL, and college as well. And then they have non-sports things too, like Disney, Marvel, Harry Potter, you name it. They've got all kinds of crazy licenses. They are literally some of the most creative people in like the merchandising and clothing space. They do some crazy, wacky, fun stuff. And so definitely check them out at rockham.com. But yeah, very excited to have them back on with us again for another season. This episode of the Six Man Show, just like all of them, is brought to you by Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is an amazing chicken place there in Winter Park at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. They make some of the best chicken, the best fries, the best coleslaw, the best pickles, all the stuff made in-house, and it is all freaking awesome. Now, you might be like me. You might have just had open heart surgery, and you can't handle spicy foods right now. You're not allowed to have them, okay? Don't worry. They have plain chicken for you as well, and it is just as good as the spicy stuff, okay? So whether you need plain stuff like me, or you can do the mild, the hot, I don't even remember all the scales before you get the jam. Jam is crazy, folks. I mean, the jam hot level of spice, Jonathan and I tried it last year. It is not for the weak. It is not for the faint of heart. It is intense. But if you're a normal human, maybe try the mild, maybe go with no spice. But anyway, Jam Hot Chicken is amazing. You can check them out at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media. And check them out at jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, and all things Jam Hot. Jam Hot Chicken was ranked number 4 in Yelp's top Florida restaurants of 2023. And there's no confusion why, because when you go, you will find out how good the place really is. Just remember, when you do go to Jam Hot Chicken, let them know that the Six Man Show sent you.
This episode is also brought to you by Drew Gooden, Keith Wallace, Michael Salapong, Dylan Holden, Shahin177. These are some of our elite and Hall of Fame tier patrons. What is a patron, do you ask? These are the folks that help financially support the show and help make each and every episode possible, help make our watch parties possible, our lights, our camera, the action, everything that happens on the show here, everything in between. They help financially support us and literally, again, make sure that every episode is possible. So if you would like to join the mission, we talked about this in the episode about how we're trying to grow this fan base. So if you want to help us grow this fan base, you can go to patreon.com/the6man show. We have different tiers available depending on what works best for you. Every little dollar helps, and we really appreciate all of our patrons. Again, you can find us and support us at patreon.com/the6man show. All right, let's meet Matt and Sam. All right, now we're going to bring in some new additions here. So Kevin and I already talked about, we're bringing some new folks onto the team here. Kevin sliding over into the podcast co-host full-time chair. He's still going to be doing, most of the post-game lives, but Kevin, who's got a new ticker. Obviously, we don't want to run that thing into the ground.
Please no.
Right out of the gates if we don't have to. So to try to make life easier for Kevin and also myself a little bit, we decided that we're gonna bring some new members to the team here to help out with content, the post game lives, everything like that. So some of you are probably familiar with both of these gentlemen, or maybe one, maybe not the other. So we're gonna go through and do some introductions here. So we are joined by none other than Magic Twitter legend Matt Rogers, MattyWorldPeace, and our boy Sam Melhuish. Boys, welcome to your first your debuts here on the 6-Man show, first of many. How are you guys doing, Matt? What's going on?
First and foremost, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm excited. What's going on? Just itching, man. We're getting content left and right from the Magic, so just enjoying that. We're getting closer to the season. The nerves are kind of kicking in a little bit. It's been a fun off season, but ready as a fan to get this thing going and see what our boys can do out there.
Sam, what's going on?
A lot of the same, man. I'm just kind of like Matt mentioned, I'm just stoked to be a part of things. I've been a fan of this show long before I was ever considered to be, brought on and a part of things. Tried to hop on as many post-game lives last year as possible and support the show and stuff. And, when this all came about, I was like, man, this is awesome. You guys make some of the best Magic content out there, and just to be able to be a part of that. And Matt, I know, mentioned season's right around the corner. And it's crazy because I remember just thinking back to last season and a couple memories from last year. It's oh man, that Cavs series feels like it was, part of me feels like it was 2 years ago. Part of me feels like it was last month.
Yeah.
And so I was well, we're already here looking at the calendar, we're doing post-game lives next week. That's crazy. And so ready for the season to get started and just stoked to put out content.
Yeah. If those that watch the show, especially our patrons, if you've been to any of our Patreon Zoom calls, something I'm very passionate about. When we meet new Magic fans, the first thing I always want to have them explain is what I call their Magic origin story, right? And so, in the world of sports, there's not a lot of Orlando Magic fans. And so I'm always curious about how us weirdos, us Magic maniacs, became the way that we are. And so I'd like to take a moment and let you guys kind of share your Magic origin story, how you became an Orlando Magic fan with our viewers and listeners. Sam, why don't we start with you? What's your Orlando Magic origin story?
So I got a bit of an interesting one. Mine's a little different than what a lot of other people are going to say. I was not born and or raised in the Central Florida area. Actually, quite contrary, I was the ultimate Fairweather fan as a kid. I would jump from team to team. There's actually a time where, I don't know if you guys remember, sometime in the mid-thousands, there was a game about 10 weeks into the season where the undefeated Colts played the undefeated Patriots. And I literally was a Colts fan going into that game. The Patriots won, and then I became a Patriots fan. It was crazy, right? I was the kid that everyone made fun of. It was a joke. And so high school comes around, and I'm I just don't think I can do this anymore. Getting roasted by people left and right. Just you're not even a real Fizz. You're probably gonna have a new team in 2 weeks. And I came to the peace with the fact of I just gotta settle in, right? And that realization came right around the time of, for any baseball fans out there, the game 162 Evan Longoria walk-off with the Tampa Bay Rays. I watched that whole thing unfold live. I was on the West Coast, so I stayed up, watched the whole thing, and it was just like one of the greatest sports moments of my life, like watching that. And I was like, man, like I just love this Rays team. So I wasn't focusing on any of the other leagues, but I kind of became a Rays fan pretty heavily from like 2011 to 2013. And then I was like, man, like I'm just going to kind of narrow in on like Central Florida. My sister and my brother-in-law lived down here at the time, and I was coming down here a couple times a year. And I was like, man, like these teams are cool. And, you know, I wasn't going to pick, I technically could have picked the Heat. Honestly, it was a 50-50 shot because my brother-in-law was a Heat fan. But then I was like, nah, like it's 2011, 2014, that range. You know, like everyone's a Heatles fan right now. Like I'm just getting out of this bandwagon stage of my life. I'm not about to just like be criticized for doing that all over again. So I'm like, sure, I'll be special. I'm going to pick the Magic. I'm going to be a Magic fan. I didn't know what I was setting myself up for because 2011 to 2015 is like the roughest stretch of Central Florida with like all 4 teams. None of the 4 teams were good. And so I didn't know that that was God's way of saying like, hey, you were a Fairweather fan for the last 15 years of your life. The next 5 years are about to suck.
Yep.
Like strap in, right? And so I became a Magic fan. And the first season I really remember watching is the 2016 season, which was my first year of college when I could really like, you know, bunker down and like watch a ton of games. And, you know, I probably watched like 70 games that year. And the team wasn't great, but for the first time in my life, like it was my team. And like the losses stung. The wins felt good. You know, I remember those Evan Fournier years, just like you do, Jonathan. I know that he's basically your favorite player of all time.
Very fond of those memories.
Yeah. So, and I've been a Magic fan ever since. And the last 8 years have been great. And I'm stoked because this is the first year I don't have, you know, those Penny T-Mac memories. I don't have those Shaq memories or those Dwight memories because that was all before I kind of came on board. And so this is really the first time that I can go into a season with like, hey, we got expectations. Like this fan base is looking forward to what this team can do. This fan base, this organization, like there are players who are expected to accomplish things this year. And it's really the first time since I've been a Magic fan that that's been the case. And I'm ready for the season to start because, you know, 62-20 and, you know, NBA finals this year. No, I'm joking, but yeah, right. I'm ready to go. So let's do it.
Well,
are you joking?
Yeah, right. I gotta say, like, you had those bandwagon years, but since you're a Magic fan, no one can call you a bandwagon fan anymore. And so definitely glad you joined on to this bandwagon, at least for now. Eventually we'll be welcoming a lot of bandwagon fans, we know. But Matt, I know you've got a different story. You're a Central Florida guy, so let's hear it. Let's hear your Magic origin story.
Yeah, man. So I actually, similar to Sam, I didn't grow up really liking basketball until one of my sister's ex-boyfriends, her ex-high school boyfriend, was on the basketball team. And then remember one day turned on the Magic game to watch. He was a Magic fan, and he's like, you should get into this. Mind you, I was probably 5, 6 at the time, so I had no clue what was happening. And then I got a little bit older. I had some friends on the street that I grew up in, and we got a basketball hoop on the neighborhood. And then I kind of got bigger into basketball. And then I shifted my focus away from baseball, and I was like, this is it. This is something that, you know, I really enjoy playing. I really enjoy watching. And then my friend was actually a Phoenix Suns fan. It was 2006, so it was that 7-second D'Antoni offense Suns team. Steve Nash was on there. I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is so fast-paced compared to baseball. This is insane. And then I remember driving one day in Orlando when I was younger and seeing this giant T-Mac like billboard poster. I want to say it was for Adidas or something like that. I remember seeing that one day. And so that kind of piqued my interest. Like, okay, so I saw Orlando on there. So do we have a team? Of course, looked it up, Orlando Magic. I was like, yeah, I remember this now. And then I was like, Dad, you got to take me to a basketball game. I want to go see a Magic game. And he got some tickets for us one time. The first game I went to was against the Milwaukee Bucks. It was the Grant Hill era, young Dwight era. And then kind of progressively from there, I just went to more and more Magic games. And then I joined Twitter back in 2009, and that kind of jump-started everything. I found an awesome community there of Magic fans. And then it wasn't until like the whole Stay Dwight movement started happening that I really got invested into the Magic, and I kind of comprehended what salaries were and these type of players and what they meant. And so the Dwight saga ended, and I was like, all right, I gotta look into this. I gotta figure out, you know, who are these prospects? What's a draft pick? What even is the point of a draft pick? And then from there, you know, it was all kind of just hit the ball rolling and just kept going. And progressively, I become a huge fan. You know, I couple years back, I got the fast break pass, so I was going to a lot of Magic games. And then I became a season ticket holder last season, and what an incredible experience that was. And so, like, here we are, man. And to your point, they can't call us bandwaggers, but it's only a matter of time before they start. They don't understand what we've been through and the struggle we've been through the last 10 years.
Yeah, facts.
No, I think it's awesome that we're at the point now with Magic fans, especially when we meet them, either it be social media or at watch parties. We know Magic fans that are 70, 80 years old that listen to the show religiously, and then we know Magic fans, Sam, who's in your early mid 20s there, who you haven't lived through like the Dwight times, but you lived through the very glorious Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vucevic days. And hey, we have fans now of the team that didn't even live through those days. So
right,
myself and Kevin, we always try to just echo the sentiment of like, hey, you see all the, like you said, Sam, the Heatles bandwagon fans of the early 20 teens, and then obviously the Cavs fans when LeBron went back to Cleveland, and the Warriors fans, right? The hope is that the Magic will have a similar level of success so that we'll have bandwagon fans as well. And if we want to grow the fan base the way that we say we do, that's just inevitable, right? Like we're getting to the point where the bandwagon is moving, right? Yep. You're jumping on now. It's because you realize that it's a young, exciting team that has a lot of potential. So we have to welcome all of the bandwagon fans in and sort of welcome them into this community and sort of this family here. Kev, why don't you talk a little bit more just about like the post-game lives and what the plan is this year for these guys?
Yeah, definitely excited for another year. It's hard to believe, guys. I mean, we're recording this Wednesday night. First preseason game of the year is Monday afternoon. So that means the first post-game live, everything's kicking off Monday. It's exciting, which is awesome. Last year we rolled out this, this live post-game show on YouTube, had no idea how it would go. It was just like, let's just try this out and see how it goes. And it was freaking awesome. Like it blew away our expectations. And it was really stinking fun. Obviously, it helps that the team won 47 games when no one expected it to, right? It helps that we had a 7-game, really entertaining series, like all those things. But combine all those things together, it made for a really, really fun season. And we're going to do it again. We're going to run it back this year. I'm really excited about that. We developed like a really cool community on there. And so I'm excited to, rekindle those relationships with all the people that were watching last year and bring on more and more people. Hopefully, if you're watching this or listening to this episode, you'll give us a try, this year. And so, but that means there are 82 games that need live post-game shows plus
hopefully
playoffs.
90 plus, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, 82 plus 16-0. So 98 games that need live post-game shows after, every game. And so, when you lay all that out on your calendar, you just go, wow, that's a lot for, one plus, myself plus Jonathan even. That's too much really for us to do. This, just a reminder, we have full-time jobs, right? So like full-time job plus this, and so we sat down, or plus, like Jonathan talked about me joining the podcast, all of that combined, we were just like, hey, we got to figure something out. Like this is not sustainable. We think this is a really cool product that we have and like an offering that we have for Magic fans. So we don't want to drop it or sacrifice it. So we thought we got to bring in some reinforcements. And I think we brought in some really quality reinforcements in Matt and Sam. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what I love about this is it's two totally different faces, two totally different experiences, two totally different opinions on games and on players and on, you name it. And so, different names, different faces, different kind of ideas about things. I think it's just going to add to the content offerings that we have. So anyway, Matt, Sam, obviously glad to have you guys on and definitely excited to continue to get to know you guys more.
I want to ask you guys, obviously, like, you guys haven't really done a post-game live yet. We're going to have you guys, do some post-game lives here, in just a bit as preseason gets rolling. And you guys are going to find like your own flavor in the way that you guys like doing the show. But talk a little bit, I guess, just about like what type of fan are you? Like, are you super optimistic like myself? Are you very pessimistic like, Luke Sylvia could be at times? Shout out to Luke Sylvia. Love you, my guy. But, it was a happy marriage that way. You get a little of this, you get a little of that with Luke. But let's start with you, Matt. Like, how would you describe the type of fan that you are? And be honest.
I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate. There's one thing that I absolutely love, and it's the Orlando Magic. So I get a little bit like us all sometimes. I may overreact to certain things here and there.
No.
Nah, so I will say that I overreact. I have matured a lot from being a very, very negative person over the course of the years. Of course, winning helps with that. But I definitely have grown a lot, and I got a good understanding of kind of how this works, how the team, how basketball works. So I understand that there's always going to be ups and downs no matter what you do in life, and that's just part of it. When the lows hit, there's lows. Like when we're last game of the season and we got to win this game, like that type of intensity comes out. We lose to Charlotte one random night on Tuesday, and I'm going in, not in a good way. And then when we clinch playoffs and that last game and we're locked in, I'm going in the opposite way. So I'm definitely very, what would you say?
You're
just
passionate.
very passionate. Yeah.
I like it. And what about you, Sam?
First of all, I wanted to say, joking about 62-20. That's not my legitimate prediction. I don't want to start my time on this show as being like, okay, so he's the unrealistically optimistic guy. No. I would say I definitely lean towards the optimistic side, but I definitely try to keep myself more grounded. More just because of the fact of you realize, kind of like Matt, what you mentioned about like the realities of just the ups and downs of the season, right? And every team over the course of the season, they're going to have that 2-week stretch where they look like crap, and then every team over the course of the season, they're going to have a 2-week stretch. Even the worst teams in the league are going to have a 2-week stretch where they're like, wow, they popped off and they won like 3 out of 4 games by an average of like 18 points. Like, we're going to the championship, So I definitely say that while I do have those huge moments of reaction and I get super hyped after the big wins, and I was the one messaging in and being like, yo, 5 games, times for Luke's nipples, you know what I mean? Like I was huge and in on that, and I loved that train, and I was ready, and that was a highlight. I was like, 5-game win streak, here we go, tonight's the night. But like celebrating the big wins, but I definitely like keeping myself a little more on the grounded side, just because I know that for every fan like me, there's a fan that's going to be like, we lost a game, we're never winning a game again, and oh, we won a game, we're never losing a game again. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that for 4 years, all 4 years in college, I lived with a Boston sports fan, and every overreaction on his part just bothered me so much that I was just like, I think I need to stay a little more grounded for the sake of my sanity. And I've transitioned that a little bit into my Magic fandom too, where you look back on last year, we were 47-35, which means that there were 35 times at the end of the night we looked back and we were like, dang, what could this team have done better to win a game? But then at the end of the year, 35 losses is nothing compared to the 47 wins. There's only a 12 number difference between those two. Like, it's not like we won 30 more games than we lost. So ultimately, it's a really fine line and a fine margin between the two. And I try to keep that in mind, when I try not to overreact to the wins and overreact to the losses, for sure.
It's awesome. Love the perspective from you guys. Love the passion. Already talked, myself and Ben, Monday after Media Day, about my takeaways. We talked a little bit earlier with Kevin about some of his. What for you guys were some of the biggest things that you took away from Media Day? Sam, you can go first.
I think the biggest thing is definitely what you guys talked about. The emphasis on regular season wins, like every single player being like, we need to win in the regular season. We need to win in the regular season. We need to win in the regular season. And then I think it was Mo, right, that had that comment about, that Tuesday game against whoever, in the middle of the season means just as much as the last game of the season against Milwaukee. And obviously, again, keeping the realism in check here, it's like how well they actually apply that. I feel like that's a very common Media Day thing for players that, or for teams that finish on like the fringe of playoff positions. So I feel like that's kind of a bit of a basic answer, even though it's definitely what we want to hear. So I'm going to be really, really excited to see how they implement that this season. And on those random Tuesday night games, are they playing with those Media Day answers in mind, or are they getting complacent because the season's already 3 months old? And then the big thing that I really took from it, that was probably the biggest thing I took from in terms of positivity. But the thing that I liked the most, I think the answer that I took that I enjoyed the most was KCP's answer, saying when he said this is the first team he's ever played on where everyone enjoys playing defense. I love that quote so much, because that's not just telling you about that's not just telling you about what the Magic stand for and how they play. That is a championship caliber level player coming in and saying, I've won championships and I've never been on a team that takes such pride in their defense as this team does. And I think that's huge because that tells you a lot about players like Paolo, to where it's like, okay, we're going to predict his slash line for this season, right? But like, he isn't willing to give 40% on the defensive side of the ball just so he can get his, right? It's like every single player, we're going to have that all defensive backcourt of Jalen Suggs and KCP. And when players on the opposing teams are going to hunt switches off of KCP and Jalen Suggs, no matter who they're switching onto, they're going to take that switch personally. And they're going to be like, oh, you're telling me that you want me instead of Jalen Suggs, instead of KCP? All right, bet. Like, let me show you what I can do, because like, I'm not as good of a defender as them, but you're not going to get past me easy. You know, we don't have any players on that team that are like that. And I think having someone that's so new to the culture and so new to the team affirm that before even game one of the season was huge, because that tells you that, you know, it's not just a bunch of BS. Like that is ingrained in the culture of the team. And that's, you know, affirmation and validation of everything that Jamal Mosley has tried to do in his time here. So,
Matt, what about you?
To play off of what Sam said, something that really stuck away from me this year, and it's something that's been building for the Weltman era. It's been building, right? We've seen it from the very bottom, and now we're at this moment. Is just to take away and see the culture that is now here in Orlando, and to see how everybody's bought in with what KCP said. What he said, like, it was just as far as, you know, this is the first time I've been on a team when it comes to defense, everybody's bought in. So to play off of that, what Goga said, I want to be here. I want to be in Orlando. To hear that and to say, this is the place that, you know, they took a chance on me. It's awesome. And this is the first season that I kind of got a little choked up on it, just like looking back and just thinking of all the other teams we've had. Because we've had young teams that have had the potential. We've had young teams that there was so much promise. There was guys there that could be a guy that could be a focal point in our franchise player. Now we have that, but we have multiple of them, and everybody's bought in and everybody's together. And even like what Welt said, you know, Coach Mose is on notice right now. Everybody in the league, you know, he has a name to him. He was third in Coach of the Year votes last year, so we could see him win that this year. The other thing I would say is probably the expectation this season. I think this is still a young team. This is still a very young team. Almost everybody's almost 25. Yeah, we brought in KCP and Gary and Corey Joe are all a little bit older vets, but everybody's still young. Last year was our first taste of the playoffs, so there's still a lot of inexperience there, and that's going to come into the long season still, I think. But there's expectations that come with that. So I think the guys all understand that now. They got a taste of a Game 7 series, which I think was huge for all of that. And I just think, though, the media kind of realized, okay, Orlando's got something here. We've heard Cassidy Hubbard say, Orlando's fans are like ready. Multiple announcers said, Orlando's fans are here. Like, we're here. But that's all across the organization. We're ready for this. I think we just have some more expectations that we have to kind of deal with. And so we'll see what happens with that. I don't think it's gonna break us at all. I think we're gonna live up to the expectation, and I think it's gonna be a fun season. Last year was an incredible season. I cannot explain just the vibes, the 35th anniversary. Like, it was an incredible year last year. So how can we play off of that and make this coming up here, the 36th year of the Magic, an even better season? So I just love that, what I saw from Media Day, and just everybody, the togetherness.
Yeah, we've heard it, like you said, Matt, we've heard it a few times from Cassidy Hubbard, and we heard it on George Niang's podcast, you know, his co-host talking about it. We heard Gary talk about it at Media Day, just how crazy the environment was. I mean, we've talked to, I don't know, half a dozen people this summer, myself and Kevin, and every time, like, we talk about that playoff series, people just talk about how incredible that environment was, you know, especially Game 3, Game 4, Game 6. But all right, Media Day has come and gone. We're 2 days into training camp now. Want to talk about, you know, some of our takeaways from that. We've got 2 days now of Franz's jumper that we've seen some videos of. He mentioned he'd been working on it over the summer, you know, trying to get his mind right, trying to get that confidence back. To me, I don't know about you, Kevin, but it looks like the release is a little bit higher. Looks like the trajectory is not as flat as what we've seen in the past. And obviously it's going in, it's training camp. There's nobody guarding him, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll have a better idea Monday. Everyone knows that is one of the big storylines that we're following this season. If the Magic are going to be able to take another level, Franz's jump shot getting back to his mean will go a long way for this team. But what were your thoughts, Kev?
I saw the footage, okay, and I refuse to feel any certain way about training camp footage. I'm sorry, I can't go there. I can't go in a positive direction, be like, oh, it's fixed, we're saved, it's fixed, and I can't go the opposite direction and go, well, I won't do it. I'm still, jury is still out for me. I got to see it with my own eyes in a real basketball game. Even preseason would count. Like if we go into preseason next week and Franz's shot looks better, it's going in, sign me up. But preseason footage of him shooting by himself in the corner, I just can't get excited about it.
This is going to make a lot of people angry. I'm just glad that we don't have to try to dissect Markelle Fultz's form any longer. I don't mean to say that, I'm not trying to crap all over him, but just every single time we saw him shoot, it's, it looks a little bit better. Oh, the hitch is back. Oh, what's going on here?
Yep.
I've never seen
that. Now we're doing that with Franz, essentially.
I've never seen an entire fan base build their entire optimism around a single player over one single pull-up three in a runaway game in a fourth quarter more than that one pull-up shot from Markelle 2 years ago. And everyone was like, did you see that one shot in that one game? None of us learned from Bol Bol. We're like, yeah, we saw him do that every single day. Did you see the other 35 minutes of the game when he was objectively trash? No, you didn't. You just paid attention to that one shot. And everyone saw that one pull-up three and like, when Markelle comes back next year and that's in his repertoire and he's hitting those with Steph Curry confidence and consistency, it's over for the league. And I'm like, where are we getting that from? That was one shot. But that was crazy.
Where were you when Markelle Fultz hit that one step back three against the Miami Heat?
Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
It was nice. It got me excited, but I didn't mean to make this a whole thing about Markelle.
It might have been what kept him in Orlando for one more season. I'm just saying. That one shot may have been why he was on the roster last year. Love Markelle, but
people are upset with us now. Anybody else? Any are you taking anything from the video of Franz's jumper?
Franz's jumper. I hope it's here, man. I really do, because I think that changes everything for us. I think that just pushes us up to the next level for where we can actually start talking about maybe being one seed. I don't want to get extreme here, but it's something like that. Like if Paolo takes another leap next year, if Franz takes another leap next year, if they both take another leap, that's something that's huge for our team. We did sign some shooters too as well. We got KCP now, Gary coming off the bench, Jet hopefully getting some playing time this year. So we do have some more 3-point shooting. So that's just another more fuel to the fire when it comes to that. So hopefully it's here. I'm not getting my hopes up like Kev. We got to see it in a game first before, I can go out here praising Franz for getting that thing back.
I'm with Kev on this one. It's you got to give me game footage. I know what I look like in the gym when no one's in front of me and when it's not game action. And I hit 12 threes in a row. And then, pickup game comes and I don't hit the rim on my first 4 shots. You know what I mean? Real game action brings out what's really there, in my opinion. And when he's not able to think about it and just focus on the form of the shot, and when he's doing it in-game motion and in-game rhythm, that'll tell us where he's really at with that. But what I will give weight to, no pun intended, is that photo that we saw, the first photo that came out of Jalen Suggs, and how that dude is just built like a tank now. And I just saw that, and I was like, John, you were at media day. Was it a noticeable difference in terms of it looked like he had put on some serious weight, and I didn't know if that was just that angle and that lighting or what that looked like.
To me, there were a couple of guys who were noticeably bigger at media day. Jonathan Isaac, Caleb Houston. I didn't have that same feeling with Jalen. Maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention, but I remember a couple of years ago, Cole Anthony, when he put on a bit of muscle, the whole swole Cole thing that that Jake Chapman, I believe, started. Maybe it was the angle. I'm sure he's been working on his body, but I just can't wait to see Jalen Suggs and what he looks like in terms of organizing the offense. So I'm looking forward to that. let's talk a little bit about some of the lineups that have come out. So in the first day, I don't know what happened exactly Wednesday and what lineups were played, but the first team, basically the starters on Tuesday, were Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr. No surprises there, obviously. The second team, however, was Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, J.I., Mo Wagner. And then the third team was Jet Howard, Corey Joseph, Caleb Houston, Tristan Da Silva, Goga Batadze. Kevin, Anthony Black in the second unit. It's the first day of training camp. It doesn't mean anything, right? Are we taking more from that than we are Franz Wagner's wide open jump shots?
I absolutely am. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we were picking and choosing.
Well, okay. There's a difference. There's a difference between shooting in an empty gym and seeing a little glimpse into the brain of your head coach, right? Like that to me, like training camp is that. There were a lot of questions coming into camp, at least for me personally, like, is the second unit going to be a Cole Gary backcourt and then figure out the front court, or is it going to be a Cole AB backcourt with Gary, being more of like a 3, like a wing there? And so that was a big question mark for me coming into this. And so to me, that was answered. I wouldn't say I was expecting Jamal to put AB in the green, quote unquote, green shirt third string. But after last year and like how AB totally fell out of the lineup once certain guys got healthy, I was a little bit scared of that. So to see him there running with the second unit, that makes me excited. Outside of that, there's not really any surprises there. That third string is pretty much what we all expected. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see AB in the second unit. I think it's a little glimpse into what we might see, starting with preseason next week. How about you, Matt?
I'm a big AB fan, so I love seeing AB out there. I do think that he's going to get a lot more play this coming season. I think if it is going to be him and Cole kind of switching it up there as the guards off the bench unit, I think that kind of is perfect to help pick up on Cole's deficiencies on the defensive end. So I hope so. And honestly, I kind of was thinking AB was going to be that Fultz replacement when we did draft him, kind of have that same type of impact, maybe not as much of a being able to drive and finish as good as Markelle did, but being a better defender in that instance. So I'm thinking we're going to see a lot more AB play. The one thing that I will say is that I'm not going to shed any light into the type of lineups that are created. I do think we have our starter set and Paolo, Franz, Wendell, Jalen, and KCP. I do think that's set. But as far as the bench goes, I think it's just going to be next man up. I do think that having all the depth that we do have, because you hear all the media outlets when they do talk about us, there's just so many guards in Orlando. What are they doing with all those guards? I think that's still incredible for us. One, we could always, when it comes down to it, if we needed to cash those guys in a trade, but not even that, because you got to think last year is probably the healthiest year that we've had in a long time. So who knows? Someone may get injured, knock on wood, but it's going to be the next man up. We saw what AB did coming in. Went on that 9-game run with him and Goga replacing the guy. So I think that's crucial for us. I'm more curious to see what happens with Jet. I think he's still going to have to work really hard to see as far as getting some time. But I'm really curious to see because he looked pretty nice in Summer League. And I think that shot is going to be huge for us too. So I'm more curious to see what happens with that.
Sam?
Honestly, the thing that I disliked the most was it just seems like Jet and Tristan are just going to get relegated to that third team and that they're not going to crack the 10-man, which bothers me. What I want to see the team do is use Cole's contract and Gary Harris's contract, flip them for a single player who's potentially 6-man, 7th-man quality, and then give Jet Howard and Tristan minutes the back half of the season. Because I really think that you guys mentioned it all the time last season, like the limited amount of time we're seeing from Jet, if he's really still in that 11th through 15th man in the rotation, then that is the front office saying we failed on this player because you pick him as high as you pick him and you need shooting. So it's you need shooting. AB's not as good of a shooter as Jet is. Cole is probably a all around scorer, but like Jet is a shooter, right? And of that 5-man that's there, it's like, okay, you've got Gary Harris, who was inconsistent last year. You've got AB, who's not a true shooter. Cole, who's a streaky shooter at best. J.I., who can hit the occasional corner 3, and sometimes he'll pop off for a little bit. And then, Mo or Goga, whoever that center happens to be. It's like you don't have a true shooter there. And so I just think that One, based on how good Tristan da Silva looked in summer camp. Like, I know you can't take a ton from summer camp. I can't say, oh, Franz shot. Wait until I see real action and then be like, but in summer camp, Tristan looked like the rookie of the year. That's hypocritical a little bit there. But I just think I see Tristan as a baby Franz. I really do. I really think that Tristan is the guy, maybe not this year just because of how crowded the rotation is, but in upcoming years, I think Tristan becomes our sixth man. Like, I just saw from his confidence and his play style and his way of just, it didn't seem like he already knew after just a couple summer league games how to fit in with the play style of everyone else around him, how to play off of other people. And that is not something you usually see comfortability of an 18th or 19th overall pick that early. It's usually like, oh, you see their raw scoring or you see their raw shooting or whatever, but like the way they play with the people around them to look that good that early after only having had a couple practices with the players around him, I think that's the type of player that we need. It's just, I'm really setting myself up again to not be super, super optimistic and try to have a hint of realism, just to be disappointed with the underutilization of Jet and Tristan this year. Because we got to trust the front office. They didn't lead us astray. They've done an amazing job with this rebuild so far. And so we have to hope that they have a reason to do what they need to do. And that if they're not cracking the rotation, then they're showing enough in practice to not be ready to crack the rotation. And if they do, then they will. But that's just me. I'm probably setting up a little bit too high of expectations for what we're going to get out of Jet and Tristan this year. So,
yeah, I think with Tristan, and to your point about how quickly he adapted to summer league and sort of the flow of those games, it's a wonder what playing 4 years of college can do for a player. I wish we would see that more often. And for me, when it comes to Jet, like if he cannot show enough to this front office by January or February to the point that they're comfortable moving on from Gary Harris and giving Jet that spot in the rotation, it says a lot about Jet. And we've talked about it, but Sam, to your point, it's a failure of the front office with that draft pick. You used the 11th pick on him a year ago. If he is not an NBA player, that's just a critical failure of that draft pick there. Kevin, any other thoughts on any of the lineup stuff that we've seen?
No other thoughts. It's all very interesting. Obviously, the Jet, the AB thing, lots of other question marks. But I think we'll get some answers pretty quickly. Preseason next week. Obviously, I think we'll see we'll definitely see all 15 guys at some point during preseason next week. But again, preseason, another little glimpse into what maybe those 10-man rotation will look like. But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, these guys still have plenty of work to do. I'm looking at their day-to-day schedule. They're going to have practice on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, and then they're going to leave for New Orleans after practice on Sunday. So these guys are getting plenty of work in this first week of camp. And then we have a preseason game Monday at 1:30 Eastern in New Orleans. Kev, you had tweeted from the account the other day, but is that game going to be televised at all?
All right, so here you go. It's going to be televised, not locally, not in Central Florida, but it's going to be televised on Pelicans.com. So it's going to be through the New Orleans Pelicans website. So I believe, my guess is that if you're local to Central Florida, you should be able to go to Pelicans.com and watch that game. I don't think they do any kind of geo restrictions on that if it's just on their website, but who knows? But according to NBA League Pass, it will be on NBA League Pass as well. So if you are a League Pass subscriber, this has been different in years past. Before last season, if you were outside of Orlando, you could watch on League Pass, but if you were in Orlando, you couldn't. Last year, League Pass subscribers in Central Florida could watch the preseason games that weren't broadcast on Bally, if that makes sense. So for example, these first two games that aren't on Bally, they were able to watch it last year, which I believe is the first time it's ever happened. So that's my long answer to your short question. That game, and then the Wednesday game against the Spurs in San Antonio, that is also not broadcast on Bally Sports Florida. It's on whatever local Spurs TV channel there. And then, the last two home games of the preseason will be on Bally Sports Florida. So that'll be fun.
And if that's broadcasted, and you can't watch it for whatever reason, if that game isn't going to be streamed here in Florida, which is to the east of New Orleans, you may be able to find some alternative methods of it's preseason basketball, .com. People are dying for preseason basketball. You just got to find a way to watch it, really by any means necessary.
Yep.
So
I remember watching one of those games, and it was a jumbotron
Charlotte
of the
a few
game.
years ago.
Yep.
Yep.
Looking forward to the Pelicans.
That
game.
might be what we're getting with this Pelicans.com thing on Monday. That's
I'll take
Wouldn't surprise
anything.
me.
Yep.
Whatever you give me, we will. It'll be fine. So, all right, fellas. I think that's gonna be it. Appreciate you, Matt and Sam, for first of all joining the team, obviously, but hopping on the pod here, get people familiar with you guys before we start the post game lives. Any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this one up?
Let's get started. Let's do it.
Yeah, time to work. Time to have a fun time. Great season. That's really it.
Looking forward to it. All right. Magic going to be practicing all this week. Obviously, we will be back with another episode on Monday. Kevin is going to attempt playback. Yes, no, maybe so. No,
Playback.
No playback
For what?
for the game on Monday.
No.
No Monday. Okay, forget what I said. No playback, folks. Sorry about that. But yeah, so
Post-game
Kevin,
live,
post game
yes.
live. That's what I was
Yes.
thinking. Post game
Okay.
live
Yes.
in the middle of the freaking day.
Yeah.
If you're
From
able
Atlanta,
to
by
tune
the way,
into that,
because I'll be back
From
in Atlanta
Atlanta.
for my 2-week follow appointment or 3-week, whatever it is. Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway,
All
but
right.
yes, post game live. Yes, no playback on Monday.
All right, well, that is going to do it for this episode. For Sam Melhuish, for MattyWorldPeace, for Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!